and welcome back to the Velvet Coffin. I'm your host, Vivienne Von Dread, with your daily dread. Let's get into today's story, shall we? Today's story is a Velvet Coffin original and is titled The Cold Man. I picked at the hard skin next to my fingernail and didn't dare meet her eye. She was nice, I think, but she is a stranger, and Mom and Dad always say that strangers should never need to ask a child for anything instead of an adult. But Mom and Dad aren't here. Everyone is a stranger now. Do you know your parents' names? At this I looked up. She was looking at me with a clipboard in her hand. Her eyes were light brown, the color of honey, just like Mommy. I felt myself relax and say, Sarah and John? Very good. She seemed excited as she wrote my answer down, and I dropped my chin to smile to myself. Maybe she can help me find them. She went down, I think, a checklist on her paper, and I answered the easy questions and what I could remember. I rubbed my wrist absent-mindedly when I had difficulty. I saw her eyes flash to my hands when that happened, and I pulled them down to my waist and sat on them. Did you get that the night it happened? I pulled my right arm out from under me and held it up to get a better look. She gingerly reached out and took my hand. I almost pulled away, but her hands were warm. I let her pull my wrist closer to her and examine my skin. Her hands were soft, like Grandma's. I could see her eyebrows pull in the way Mom's do when she's working at her computer, and her lips got tight. I felt my spine get stiff. Was something wrong? As soon as I started to open my mouth, she let my arm go, and the tension in her face was gone. She almost even smiled at me. I felt myself hunch a little again. I don't remember when I started, then really looked down at my wrist again. I think it was after he took me. I waited for her to ask another question, but the room rang in silence. I looked up at her to see if I had said something wrong. She didn't look mad, but she kept looking at me, like she wanted me to keep going. I didn't know what to say, so I just shrugged my shoulders. The corner of her mouth twitched up like she was trying to smile at me. She took a deep breath in and leaned back. Do you want to take a break? She asked, and moved her head to her left. I looked over and saw the train rug had a little table on it with some action figures and toys. My mouth was open, but no sound came out, so I just nodded at her. She stood up and said, Then let's play. I got off the couch and followed her over to the little table. There were 2 chairs, my size, and I couldn't help but giggle as she wiggled her way onto one until she found her balance. Then I remembered that might be rude, so I covered my mouth and pretended to cough a little. Maybe she didn't notice. I looked up at her, and she was still smiling, so I breathed out in relief. We each picked up some toys and started walking them around the table. Me, the little mouse guy with blue pants, and her, the little red car with a funny face. Louis, can you tell me what happened earlier that night? Do you remember what you had for dinner? I don't remember, I answered as I bounced the mouse around the table after the car, like follow the leader. But Mom and Dad let me stay up to watch the end of the movie. She perked up at this. That sounds fun. What movie was it? I don't know. But it had wolves and angry guys. I rattled off my favorite parts of the movie and saw her nod along. It was so cool. I wish I could do that. That would be fun. I felt my face get hot, and I felt suddenly angry. I could have scared him. I saw her car stop bouncing. I kept my eyes fixed on the table. I didn't want to stop playing, so I needed to calm down. I don't want to get in trouble again. I saw her start to roll the car around again, and I let my mouse do a little dance. She didn't say anything, so I tried to keep talking, so she knew everything was okay. I mean, if I was a big wolf, then no one would have been brave enough to come in. You're right. I stuck my chest out higher. If he came then, I would just bite him and claw him, and he wouldn't be able to fit the thing around my big paws, and he'd be sorry. I'm sure he would, she agreed. She was quiet, but agreeing with me, so I felt like I could keep talking. He wasn't that scary. I was just surprised. I looked up from the mouse, but she kept looking at the car. I can tell you about it if you want. I saw her nod, so I took a deep breath, and I told her the story. When the movie was over, Daddy made me brush my teeth. I hate brushing my teeth. I hate the way mint tastes. Then Mommy put me in bed and tucked me in and told me no iPad in bed since they let me stay up already. I promised, and tried to get tired while I stared at my underwater nightlight I got from the aquarium. I guess it worked, because the next thing I remember is hearing the crash. I screamed and looked around the room, but no one was there. The crash and bang was followed by rumbles, loud like an avalanche, and I swear I could feel the room bouncing. I threw my blanket over my head to be safe, but I could still feel the rumbles and hear things smash. I jumped out of bed and ran toward my door. I wanted to get to Mommy and Daddy's room, but the rumbling was stronger by the door, and when I got closer, I heard Mommy scream. Daddy was yelling, I think. They were fighting monsters, I think. And they must have flown away safely because they sounded strong. I tried to find a better place to hide in my room, because once the rumbling stopped, I knew Mommy and Daddy would come find me. They knew I was safe in my room, and so they got somewhere safe too. The rumbling started to sound farther away, so I sat in the corner with my stuffed animals and waited. I could hear them. Well, I thought it was them. I heard footsteps in the hallway, but not rumbly ones. They were slower and softer, and I thought it was Daddy. The doorknob turned, and when the door creaked open, I never felt anything like it. The whole room froze. I got goosebumps all over my body. It was so cold, my teeth clacked together. And that's when he saw me. He twisted towards me. He was giant and wide with shiny black eyes and no mouth or nose. I could see the smoke coming off of him, like when you first take a popsicle out of the freezer on a hot day. I started shivering harder, and his giant hand got larger and closer until it wrapped around my arm and pulled me up. His grip felt like a burn, so cold it was hot. I tried to pull away, but then I felt him put my hands together and slip something over them and crank it tight. It closed so tight I thought my hands were getting cut off, but it still didn't hurt as much as when he grabbed me. I followed where he led so he wouldn't touch me again. I didn't scream. I think I was too scared to. And he was big. And he didn't have a face. He took me outside and threw me in a big monster box that closed around me, and I felt us moving. He never made a sound, just surrounded me with icy air, and I couldn't do anything, not even cry because my tears would freeze and burn my cheeks. He took me somewhere with more of him. They were all big, and none of them had faces, and they all had kids like me. We were all on leashes and being dragged around by the wrists, and no one really looked up. We didn't talk to each other for fear they would grab us with their terrible burning hands. We just moved where the cold men took us and waited. They sometimes made sounds at us, but we didn't understand. We couldn't understand them without mouths. And that would make them angry, and we would cry, and they really didn't like it when we would cry. They would open the black holes where their faces should have been, and this different sort of cold would spill out. It swirled and felt spiked when it would hit us. But that didn't last either, just when they opened their not mouths. Then they were gone. I looked up and she's staring at me. Her eyes sad again. Thank you for telling me, Louis. Uh-huh. I nodded and kept pulling the mouse around the table. I didn't realize she had dropped the car ages ago. Do you know where they went? I asked. She nods and her lips looked tight again. I fidgeted with my fingers, debating, then finally blurted out, Did they take Mommy and Daddy? She met my eyes and looked different, stiffer, but she nodded. I didn't want to ask if they would ever come back. I didn't want to hear the answer. So instead I asked, Where did the cold men go? Her mouth twitched, and she looked sorry as she whispered, They're everywhere. Ooh, spooky. Again, today's story is a Velvet Coffin original written by Cat Yudain. Ooh, I like that name. Resources to know your rights should you encounter the cold man. The website for the National Immigrant Justice Center at immigrantjustice.org, with a comprehensive list of how to know your rights and what to do should you encounter anyone threatening your safety. Our personal favorite safety measure at the Velvet Coffin is to go for the eyes. Allegedly. Thank you for visiting the Velvet Coffin. I'm your host, Vivienne Von Dread, with your Daily Dread. Now goodbye. Get out. See you tomorrow.